No project of memory is innocent. I mean, every project of memory is implicated in an attempt to paint a particular picture, to project a particular future. Even if we sat here and we said we just want to tell a neutral, total history, we can't. It's not possible. It's outside of human ability to do that. The best that we can do is to be much more honest about where we want to go with our past. Because where we are going matters as much, if not more, than where we come from.
The British acknowledged that we had to establish a university in South Africa, which then was established in June the 26th, 1873, as the University of the Cape of Good Hope, with the grand imperial project of ensuring that we produce the kinds of elites, that will serve our own interests in our colony at the time, and of course the rest of the colonies on the continent, because that was basically the center that they were going to be using for that particular purpose. And it had a relationship, with all the colleges, that existed at the time. And then with the Royal Charter that was actually granted to this university in 1879, the opportunity arose, for these new colleges, that had an association with the University of the Cape of Good Hope to actually establish themselves as new universities. That is the University of Cape Town and Stellenbosch University. The University of the Cape of Good Hope had its first phase of operation by 1906 and the second phase by 1913, and then changed its name to the University of South Africa by 1916 and relocated from Cape Town to Pretoria in 1918.
This 140-year-old history, not all of it was pretty. What are we going to do with the gory aspects of our history, the shameful aspects of our history, where we fought one another and killed one another and rejoiced at it? What do we do with those things? Do we pretend they didn't happen?
When Unisa was started, obviously it was the University of the Cape of Good Hope. And that whole change, that whole transformation, obviously from being a typically white-only university to being a university that accommodated absolutely everybody, it is something to be commended.
So they want you to be able to reflect back and reflect on your learning so that you can learn from where you've possibly gone wrong or do things better or change things.
Actually, it scared me that I should reflect on what I did, I should plan, and it was something scary, but after I've realized that it's something that you should learn to, it must be part of your studies, do it not only in community but in every module that you are doing. I think it will give you way forward.
It also helps you learn from your mistakes, because you guys are still learning, so you're not going to do everything perfectly.
You see, there's more black students who will go and study at Unisa because some have to work and then they have to then study. So it really has opened doors for so many people and for so many children, particularly us adults, who cannot go to school and sit and study. So I think really a university, an institution like that, you can look back and say they have done a lot.
Unisa is a borderless institution. It's the University of South Africa because it is founded here. But actually, it's the University of Africa. And it's the university of the world. And I can get a degree with Unisa even if my father or my parents are not middle class.
There's no other university like Unisa that can impact on society and economy on the scale that Unisa can. So we can reach hundreds of thousands of students, whatever they are, not only locally but abroad. And it doesn't matter what class background that students come from or what material conditions they've come from. By the time they leave here, they are equal.
During those dark days, Unisa was the only institution available for anybody who wanted to do degrees. I wanted to be a lawyer. I applied to study at Wits because I lived in Benoni. I thought I could commute because the money that my family had was enough for tuition. But I was deprived what they called at the time ministerial consent. So the Minister of Education refused me and many other black people to study where we wanted to study. So I could not do law at Wits because government would not allow me to study where I wanted to. I was referred to Pietersburg. I could not commute between Pietersburg and... So I chose Unisa. Unisa was the only alternative.
It was said that other people did not want the black community to be educated. Some of the things were hidden from us. But because we knew exactly what we wanted, and even our leaders, you know, they knew that we need to be educated, we need to be skilled to compete with the whole world. So, you know, people like Barney Pityana, Deputy Judge Moseneke as well studied there. I mean, he was like 14 when he was arrested. The great Nelson Mandela studied at Unisa. So you could see that even though it was very difficult for black people to acquire knowledge, Unisa at least opened up its doors for our people to be able to study.
I left Fort in 1968, I was expelled, and then tried to register 1 or 2 at Unisa, but I just couldn't because I was really, if you like, a full-time revolutionary, if you see what I mean. Because we spent all our time, the focus on studies wasn't primary in our thinking. But then come 1973, when I was actually banned and confined to the magisterial district of Port Elizabeth, I was then able to be articled to a firm of attorneys in PE and was then able to continue with my law studies with Unisa. In that time, I was frequently arrested and detained. In the time from 1973 to 1978, I probably was in jail for 2.5 out of those 5 years. It was very, very disruptive, and I'm almost certain the intention wasn't security, it was torture. You know, it was meant to be mental torture. So of course, one had to mentally work against the clear intention to destroy you by the security operatives of the country. And passing was more than mere success. It was victory.
All those who were incarcerated on Robben Island made it very clear that this is the only university that was a source of hope for them. the access that they had to Unisa, receiving those study materials and so on, made a huge difference.
I was not charged with anything. Those days you didn't need to be charged to be sentenced. So because I refused to give evidence for the state, I was then sentenced to time on Robben Island. I can't speak often enough about the importance of education in this whole process. You know, a lot of the senior leaders, Nelson Mandela, were doing their degrees via Unisa. You would first apply for the permission to study, and it would be written in big, bold letters, this is a privilege, not a right. And if there's any disturbance or anything which they felt, you are either one of the problematic inmates, they would just take it away. But I mean, by the time I came, Robben Island was really not as harsh as it was in the 60s and 70s when, you know, the senior leaders and the majority of the prisoners were taken there. We need to understand our history. We need to convey that to the future generations because there's no one else who can do that except those people who are fortunate enough to have been part of the past, are part of the present, and touch wood, can still be part of making the future.
When I joined the Department of African Languages at Unisa, there were about 35 or so staff members. There were no black women, so it was lonely. I was a kind of center of attraction, if I could put it that way. Not necessarily positive attraction all the time. Others looked at me askance, wondering whether you are supposed to be here. Because the only black woman in this institution was the cleaner. And here am I occupying an office, dressing like they do, and doing what they're supposed to be doing. So it was tricky.
You Department of African Languages at Unisa, when I joined as the only woman, we used to go on discussion classes. So I would go with usually two of my first language Xhosa speakers, and we'd travel where Unisa had centers and where there was a concentration of Xhosa students. It was in the dark days of apartheid. It wasn't easy. You can imagine, here's this white woman with two black men, and we went everywhere together. We weren't allowed to stay together at the beginning until I really said that I was not prepared to live apart from these men, if you know what I mean. And so we could only stay at international hotels. So we stayed at these really very nice hotels that had the status of being an international hotel where black people could stay.
I mean, of course, it was a huge opportunity to be at Unisa and to be part of a very vibrant young cohort of students who were free to read and to debate. I mean, we read Biko, we read Frantz Fanon, we read all of the things we were not supposed to read quite freely. So it was an exciting place to be, and Unisa was the space that gave us these possibilities. But we were also keenly aware of the history of Unisa, or even the present of Unisa at that time, because, I mean, I was part of a very small minority of black students getting that kind of job. Even that kind of job was not, it wasn't usual for a research assistantship to be offered to a young black South African.
Yeah, you see here it's 0.23, so it's 0.26. But you find that the flow rate it remains the same because of the diameter.
I think the direction that Unisa is taking, they realize that they're getting more students that are enrolling and they can accommodate them. So they had to come up with a plan and hence the science campus. So we have this new building that was specially built for us and we have new laboratories because in the past, when I was still doing my undergrad, the practicals were done at other universities like the University of Pretoria, Tshwane University of Technology, but now we're able to accommodate all those students in our lab. So Unisa doesn't have to outsource anymore. So on your program, you set the injection volume to 2,000 microliters, which is 2 mils. We're doing preparative work, so we want large amounts.
Okay. Actually, so I'm from Rwanda. I'm from Kigali. But then back home, we don't have facilities to do research. So that's why I was looking for where I can go. And I came to Unisa here in South Africa. In the future, I can help my scientists back home to get this equipment that we have here, because I know we need it back home, but we don't have them.
In the new post-1994 era, and also in terms of global developments, community engagement is one part of the larger tertiary institutional mandate: teaching, research, and community service or community engagement. So community engagement now is very much part of the mainstream, so to speak. It's part of the policy orientation. Academics are expected to conduct research and teach and integrate modalities of engagement within their teaching and research. There's a massive poverty, massive inequality, and we are really about how to connect this world of disadvantage to the world of ideas and innovation.
I want us to draw a tree today, a tree that represents you as a person.
Yes. So we have identified that majority of learners from this school, they are coming from troubled childhood. And our job here is to give them life skills and give them intervention when it comes to counseling.
These are the trees I've collected. And while I was doing it, going around, I've observed some trees are very plain, so I want us to analyze them.
Holes in a tree is a significance of trauma. So, as we have indicated, you are not sure what is happening in this child's life. Our take is that we need to engage with you, the school, as a life orientation educator, as well as the parents, so that the whole holistic team can work together for the benefit of this child. That is our aim. At the end of the day, we need to see these kids grow in their self-concept, becoming full functional individual beings.
Our institute has worked in most communities over 15 years. This is not a quick fix. It's not parachuting in and out. It's really about staying in through periods of trouble, through periods of instability, and periods of celebration. So it's really staying with the different mood cycles of a community that get impinged on and influenced by the larger political and social context. So it's really about staying staying focused, developing those relationships, about negotiating what is it that one can bring as a researcher, as an academic, as a teacher into that exchange.
If you walk in the corridors of Unisa those days, you had the eerie silence of a government office. It was no interaction, no academic activity among ourselves. People came to the office, 1 o'clock they left, and they called that academic institution. It was just crazy for me. So there was a great deal of trying to change the culture of the institution. At this point, it's not even about black, white, it's not about race. It's just about making the place sound and look and feel like an academic institution rather than a government office.
In 2004, this university was established anew. So when we talk about the University of South Africa at this day and age, we are talking about a new university that has come into being as a result of the merger between that old Unisa, the erstwhile Technikon Southern Africa, and the incorporation of Vista Vudek.
When Barney Pityana came in, it was total transformation. And, you know, an academic, a man who understands people, a man who doesn't discriminate. And really, for me, there was a great turning point for Unisa because he was a great visionary. He wanted to expand Unisa's turf. He wanted Unisa to be part of the bigger Africa and the whole world. And so he really opened it up.
The whole set of university mergers was a very well-calculated instrument to force transformation of universities, to force universities that were previously white to deal with the reality of having to be of service to more than just white students and white staff members. And it was a brilliant tool, very difficult. There was a lot of blood on the floor at the end of the merger period, but it was, in my view, one of the best possible tools this government could have used.
I think we used the merger as a catalyst for transformation. In the end, the merger for us, we were able to create a wholly new vision about this institution and entrench the transformation possibilities of that institution. We did that. I don't think if it had been left to the minister, that's what he would have done.
When I came in as dean in 2008, and I walked about the college, and this college is the second biggest of the 8 colleges of this university. And all I saw were men, mainly white and mainly old. And I was worried that these guys, as productive as they were going to retire soon. And so the gap is going to be wider. And we have all of these students, 350, today we have 400,000 students. And that worried me. The profile was absolutely wrong, but there were 162 vacancies. And I just decided as dean that I was going to close this gap by filling the 162 vacancies with black.
I think by the time I left, the university was a better place. It was a better place because it had a sense of its mission, a better sense of its mission. I think the university certainly did feel and act like a university should. And there was a great deal sense of pride in the institution, which was not there before. And people acknowledged and owned the institution in a way that I think they never did in earlier days.
Now the university has a mentorship program thanks to this exercise that we started in 2008. And it has brought us together as a university, even if the program works in some colleges and not in the other. But it's possible. Now we have associate professors and professors, black, female, young white people who did not realize they could grow that fast because the program did not exclude, did not distinguish black from white and male from female. As long as you were new, you got a mentor and you walked together in pairs. My point is, you just need leadership.
Manene na manenekazi, ndiyayibulela imbeko undenzela yona. Imbeko uyokuma phambi kwenu nina nonke. Ndinixelela ukuba khanifunde ulwimi lwenu. Torho! Siphuma apha eMzantsi, masithethe okanye masikhulume kapa ribuwa Sesotho ngelwimi lwethu.
The biggest African languages departments were at Unisa. And I think they are slowly dying because, they don't produce the money.
With the decline in the African language numbers, the students studying African languages, the department had to actually get rid of lecturers, with the result that you now are finding that they're not people to teach or not enough people to teach the African languages. So universities are going to have to make a concerted effort to train teachers.
In many parts of South Africa, wherever you are, there are at least 3 languages that are being spoken. And South Africans are not really learning the languages. And for me, I think it's an essential part of why we misunderstand one another in this country. And secondly, the second tragedy, as far as languages are concerned, for me, is white South Africans who really, except for learning English, and with some luck, Afrikaans, if they want, or if they are Afrikaans, they just learn Afrikaans and English for survival. They're not learning any more languages. And I just find it astounding that is the reality of our country. Now, of course, it doesn't explain all our misunderstandings as a people, but I think it explains our unwillingness to step out and learn from others.
Unisa Music Foundation is a program that gets into a community, takes students or kids from the street, and it gives them the opportunity to learn an instrument from the zero knowledge to being a professional. It sponsors everything. When I say everything, I mean from your transportation, from leaving your home to get into the lessons, getting to concerts, like to even get into a concert, the ticket, the transportation, they sponsor all of that. So basically it takes a student as they are and it gives them all the tuition, all the opportunities they are in the music, like any other person who can afford.
When I remember it, my eyes are filled with tears. So one day, she was still small, at the age of 6, I think. We were supposed to come and buy some groceries here in Spa, so we crossed by that road. Then she saw the school where they attend the violin, and she said, "Mommy," I said, "What is wrong with Sisiwe?" I said, "Mommy, if you have a chance, just come here because the children here are studying violin. I really like to join violin." I said, "What is violin?" I said, "Mommy, this is the little instrument that they put here in the neck, then they play." I said, "Sisiwe, I'll just see if I have time." So when we come back, We passed that school again. Then she cried, "Mommy, I'm not going with you until you just go in there with me now. Then I want to know about the violin." From there, Usisiwe was like, boom. Every day when she came with the violin, she used to practice. Yeah, she's brilliant. She's so brilliant.
Unisa's vision, the African university in the service of humanity. I think the vision is powerful. The university aspires to be African, physically, intellectually, epistemologically, and otherwise. So I think this vision is powerful because, think back to South Africa, when whites referred to themselves as European and blacks were non-European. That is denying who you are. If you refer to yourself as European, it means you are embarrassed about your Africanness, which was a pity. Because it doesn't matter who you are. If you are on the African continent in South Africa, many of us are born here. We're African. So this is what the vision does. It reminds me about our identity, our true, authentic identity.
Transformation, as I see it, lies in the way people think about things, and it lies in the way paradigms are built.
We need to develop perspectives which are very Afrocentric, that help us to see things from the best interests of Africans and the African continent, and whether it's culturally or economically or politically, socially, that's the lens you provide. So when you produce knowledge looking at things through that lens, it's very different to when you are using knowledge produced from the West. So we are talking of a sea change that African universities and knowledge producers have to make, and gradually to build up a cohort of knowledge produced from the African perspective. So you start developing an African canon of knowledge. It's a big ambition, but it has to be done, otherwise you'll forever be second class and subordinated to knowledge that's produced elsewhere.
It is what you feel inside that you feel is excluded. Deep inside, you feel it. You feel your Africanness excluded from everything. You see, the Africanization itself means nothing. But to have what was excluded included, it is going to be a serious challenge.
As we unite under the African sky, on the African soil, we serve humanity. And humanity is these people that we come from. Because you can't divorce yourself from your community. You're part of that community. And that community is uneducated, it is sick, it is poor, it is all sorts of things that need support. So Unisa pledges with this vision to work together for the benefit of everybody else.
The area where I grew up, Kailicha, it's not really a good place to raise a child because a whole lot of crime happens. And I mean, with myself and my sexuality, because I'm a lesbian, people don't understand that and there tend to be a lot of hate crimes. So I moved away when I was 19 years old. Studying through Unisa really helped me to deal with my own issues, and actually studying the subject psychology really helped me to become and be free and just be proud of who I am and where I am going with my life. It wasn't like on a full-time basis, it was on a part-time basis because I had my dance classes that I had to do and choreography and whatnot. Now I'm a teacher and I'm a choreographer and I perform a lot as well. And every day when I wake up, I know I'm doing something that I love, where I get to express whatever I'm feeling.
What is interesting for me, looking into the future, is that the affordances of technology are going to mean that the majority of universities that currently are contact institutions will find themselves having to operate like how we do our business as a university.
How we teach, how we learn, how we do everything will change. You cannot carry on the assumptions, current assumptions of a print-based teaching and learning environment, when the digitization opens up so many more possibilities for student support, for communication, for assessment, for simplifying the lives of students, and for allowing them really to learn where they are, where they don't have to physically go. You have to hop a train or hop a bus or a taxi and then another bus and taxi and take a train and then trudge all the way to the building, because you don't need to come to a place to learn anymore. You can learn wherever you are. And that's a game changer. And we need to, as a university, capitalize on that for the benefit of our students and the benefit of our society. E-learning is not intended to usurp what a university does. What it helps us to do is to provide far more support that's more tailored to students' individual needs than you can do if you got everyone sitting in one classroom. Online, you can have a menu of 100 different support applications. For example, if you are not too sharp on your numeracy skills, you can go and do an online course on numeracy and brush up on your numeracy capabilities. If you have never worked with a computer before, you can go and do an online course on end-user computing. That's what it makes possible.
Unisa is the biggest university in Africa, almost the 8th biggest in the world. Has got unseen potentials.
It's trying to find a balance and models of working that allow universities and its membership to fulfill its social mandate, its educational mandate, but also find an economic model that will allow it to sustain itself. And that's not an easy, it's not an easy issue. In the case of South Africa, we have other kinds of significant matters to deal with. You know, it's changing, altering the demographics so that universities are more representative of the country's population, but it's also more than changing the demographics. It's about looking at how we produce research, how we teach, introducing models that are inclusive, that recognize the plurality of our society. It's really a long-term project. I don't think we've quite arrived yet, but it's an exciting one nonetheless.
The Unisa project is a strategic memorialization of the past. It intends to respond to the current challenges facing higher education in the country and facing Unisa in particular in the country. Strategic insofar as it is a looking back in order to look forward to a future that we want not to become victims of, but a future that we want to shape. And you only shape the future by knowing better where you come from and what your strengths are.